So we actually got a new look here at The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 2, and it's very, very exciting. There's a whole interview here. I've been talking about this for like the last week or two. I said that like the week of Comic-Con, there's likely going to be like some interviews and some new teaser images and whatnot from Entertainment Weekly, because they always post that like the week before Comic-Con. Sometimes there's like one or maybe two articles. We could see two articles this week. Maybe there's going to be one on Dead City. We'll have to wait and see. Comic-Con is in 3 days from now, so a lot of excitement here. I mean, tomorrow I'm going to be posting my Q&A video. There's a couple other Walking Dead videos that I want to do this week, but also Thursday night is going to be Deadpool and Wolverine, and then Friday is Comic-Con. Also Saturday, like depending on my excitement for Deadpool and Wolverine and how great that movie is, I've been seeing some people saying that the Marvel panel is going to be on Saturday. So if it is actually on Saturday, and you guys can let me know in the comments, then yeah, I'll do a video breaking down all the latest news regarding Marvel's, I guess, Phase 6 announcements, right? But yeah, The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 2 looks absolutely incredible, and we have a new interview here by Norman Reedus and Melissa McBride. So yeah, let's get into that here. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this, and also definitely go join the Discord, because I'm going to be doing my Q&A video tomorrow, and there's a Q&A section there. So if you have any questions regarding The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 2, there's still some time to post questions in there. So yeah, the link for that will be in the description of this video. So what should we get into here first? The interviews, or I guess the images? I guess let's get into the images here, and then we could talk about the interviews and what they're saying and all that, because there's a lot of stuff in here that they're actually talking about here. So the first shot here is of Daryl, and this looks like obviously he's in France at this point. What's notable here is that he has his crossbow. So at this point, he's already reunited with Carol. What I will say though is that Carol's not in this shot with Daryl, and we know that the synopsis for the season said something about Carol being on opposing sides of the whole conflict in France, you know, I guess than Daryl. So I'm assuming that maybe something happens with the story where she has to go and join Madame Genet's group or something like that. So maybe that's why they're apart here. But yeah, I don't know what episode this is a part of. This could be from episode 2 or 3. Like, I'm assuming it's going to be episode 2 or 3, because I don't see Carol and Daryl reuniting in the very first episode. I think episode 2 makes a lot of sense. And then I think that there could be some stuff that happens, though, in that episode before they actually, like, reunite and we get a shot like this. And we'll talk about that in a second, because there's other shots that actually kind of hint at that. But yeah, we see Daryl here with his crossbow, which is absolutely incredible that he does have it back, because he never had it at all in season 1, right? So really cool to have it in season 2. I mean, he did have it in season 1 during that flashback, but I just more mean like in France, right? So very cool. I will say Daryl's overall look is really awesome. Like, I think it's the gloves. And what I will say is interesting is that the gloves he's wearing, like, they're full gloves, right? Like, the fingertips aren't actually cut off. But you go to the next shot here of Daryl, and at this point here, he's in some sort of vehicle, he's in a car or whatever. And if you look at the gloves that he's wearing, all of a sudden he doesn't have any fingertips on his gloves. So I don't know if it's because he's changing his gloves and whatnot, but yeah, just a small detail that I noticed there. But yeah, this shot of Daryl here is very, very amazing. So we have Daryl in a vehicle here with a bunch of walkers outside. And I think at this point, and this is just sort of a prediction of mine, but I feel like it makes sense that Daryl is in the car with Carol at this point, and maybe this is how they reunite. Like, maybe somebody's in trouble, this and that, and then, you know, Daryl goes in, tries to help that person out, and then eventually finds Carol in the car. Because in this car here with a bunch of walkers around, I am really interested in how they're actually going to escape from this, because, I mean, it's just so many walkers, right? Like, you're going to have to try and climb over all of it. And that's the crazy thing about that, is like, these aren't the variant walkers, these are just normal walkers. Imagine if they were the variant walkers. Like, they would be dead. And I think that's the craziest thing about the variant walkers in the show, and just for the future of The Walking Dead, is that it changes all of that. And people talk about, you know, trying to make zombies more scary and whatnot. That is definitely the way to do it, because it changes all of the rules for survival. Like, you can't just stay in a car like this. Like, yeah, they're in a car right now and they're relatively safe unless a window breaks or something like that, but they're just in that car. If these were variant walkers around this car, like, they're already dead, right? So that's what makes them really, really fascinating. And that's why I'm so excited for what they'll bring this season. But yeah, really cool shot here of Daryl with a bunch of walkers. And again, I think this is the same shot where we do see Carol as well in the vehicle. It almost looks like Daryl is like in the back seat. Maybe not, but it kind of looks like he's maybe in the back seat and he's looking up at the front, because Carol's sitting in the passenger seat. And then I think the other character named Ash is sitting in the driver's seat. So that's kind of like, that's what I'm assuming anyways, because we have this other shot here of Carol where you can see all the walkers all around the vehicle and Carol is trapped in this vehicle here. It makes sense that Daryl is probably here as well. But yeah, then we have this other shot here. There's 2 more shots of Carol. But this one here is of Carol on Daryl's bike, which is a very cool shot because, I mean, just her riding Daryl's bike in general is just really awesome. And this is when she shows up to the mechanic shop or whatever, right? And she's asking, them about Daryl and whether or not they saw him and whatnot. So she'll get some answers there. We have another shot here of Carol, which isn't really too new. This is basically the same scene, right? So they've been showing us a lot of this. They really don't want to give a lot away for the season. It's kind of hilarious. Like, they're really just giving us like a tiny bit. I know the trailer is going to show us a lot more. And I will say the actual images that we got from Daryl, at least a part of this Entertainment Weekly article here, it was actually pretty revealing because he actually has his crossbow. And the fact that we see Daryl in this vehicle here, there's a lot to read from that, right? So yeah, really incredible. But let's actually get into the interviews here with Norman Reedus and Melissa McBride regarding the season. Again, I'll leave a link down below to the article here, so definitely go and check it out. It's from Entertainment Weekly. There's a lot here. Melissa McBride actually talks about joining the spinoff and, I guess being a part of this now, because in season 1, obviously she wasn't really a part of that. She was there kind of at the end, but she wasn't a part of the story and whatnot. And she says, Norman was off to France to do the first part of it, and I had things I needed to take care of. Norman Reedus then says, we talked about doing a spinoff together way before anybody came to us. The idea was that she and I were going to be on a road trip to see who's left out in the world. One of the ideas was that everybody dies, and we might get on that bike and there's no way to go back to anything because everyone's dead. So it was sort of a travel show, kind of figuring out who's left in the world. That's a really interesting idea. I mean, obviously, I don't know if they would have ever done that, like literally killing off every other character, but I could see it if it was more of a conclusive ending. And I feel like that's probably going to be how a lot of their story ends anyways. Like, say, they do an endgame series, Rick dies, and there's a lot more of like an ending to everything. I feel like Daryl's going to be like, you know what, I'm going to leave. And so Daryl and Carol, they travel everywhere and try to find people out there and whatnot. And maybe we don't get to see that because that's more of that's sort of the ending to their story there. But I feel like that makes a lot of sense. But the thing is, they are doing this spinoff right now and they are traveling quite a bit. So their endings might be different because Daryl now has a new family technically in France now, right? Like Isabel, Laurent. So it depends on what happens with their stories and all that by the end. But yeah, anyways, Melissa McBride actually talks about, we're not going to see the same Carol here in this season, which I find very interesting because I just kind of assumed that where Carol was at in the finale, like you would just sort of build off of that. But based off of a lot of the first reactions to the very first episode of season 2, it seems like Carol is going to be really confronting, a lot of old trauma. And I do think she'll be in a totally different place here. And she actually says here, she is determined, but it's a different type of fearlessness that's driven by her determination to find her friend. And also by the headspace that we find Carol in, which will be revealed. And in the article, it actually says that Melissa McBride didn't want to go into it more than that. So I'm really interested in that. I mean, obviously we know in the synopsis, it says that she's going to really be dealing with old trauma and all of that. And so I wonder if we're going to see a different Carol here in the first episode. And I wonder if it's going to be very obvious, like, oh yeah, this is a totally different Carol. Like, this was not what we were expecting at all. And I really do wonder if we're going to be getting some Ed and Sophia flashbacks because it really does seem like it. Norman Reedus then says about the whole thing here that Melissa and I and everybody else wanted to do something new. This was a real opportunity to take all these elements that make this show and these characters so compelling and make something brand new and fresh. And that's what we did. I think the finale of season 2 is the best 1 hour of Walking Dead anything ever. And I've been here since day 3. So for real, it's my favorite 1 hour of Walking Dead anything. And he said that before, obviously, like we've heard him say that about a month ago. So that could have been around the time that they did these interviews. I'm not entirely sure, but I do feel like that is very, very, he's been saying it a lot. So like going into season 2, and that's the thing, is like we're going to have those expectations now, right? That the very last episode is going to be like the best episode ever, really, like the best episode or the best 1 hour of anything. And I'm just trying to think of what would need to happen in order to really accomplish something like that. Like, you would need to have obviously crazy action scenes. I think variant walkers would need to play a role in that. There would need to be deaths, obviously like big character deaths. So I don't know if Isabel would die, Laurent would die, or Cordron would die. You know, I don't know if any of them, Madame Genet. Like, you would need to have some big character deaths, some really big reveals. I've been talking about it before, like having one of those characters appear as a variant walker would be absolutely insane. And so having something like that, or having, again, more variant walkers everywhere, maybe the nest, you know, gets completely overrun by these variant walkers and they're forced to leave, right? Like, I feel like doing something like that, you know, in terms of the music as well, like the music can really make things really iconic. Like, if you just think about the Whisperer Pike scene, that scene was incredible, but I feel like what makes that scene way more amazing is the music. It was just really mind-blowing, and I feel like that scene, you know, the music was like 50% of the reason why that scene was really amazing, if not more. So we'll have to wait and see in terms of that finale. I mean, I could see it being potentially that. I mean, I don't know. You got to think of like some of the best episodes of The Walking Dead. I mean, there's quite a bit up there. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I know after we watch episode 5, going into episode 6, we're all going to be like, well, Norman Reedus said this was like the best 1 hour of anything Walking Dead ever or whatever, right? So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if that ends up being true. But yeah, really cool stuff here. I'm really excited for Comic-Con. I really do agree with what Norman Reedus is saying here. You know, he was saying that him and Melissa McBride wanted to do something very new here in terms of the story and just everything, you know. And I think getting all new writers, getting a new showrunner, getting just like a completely fresh look at the season here was probably one of the best things that they could have done. And that's not saying anything bad about, you know, the old writers and whatnot on The Walking Dead. It's just more of, you want a fresh view, I feel like, on this series, right? Like, if you take new writers and you bring them to The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon and they haven't written anything Walking Dead really before, I mean, that's kind of what we're getting with The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, right? Like, it is a totally different story here. I mean, they're doing different things, you know, it's very unpredictable now. I feel like The Walking Dead definitely got pretty predictable in the last like 4 or 5, maybe 6 seasons. I know a lot of it was based off of the comic, obviously, but you could just sort of predict some of the story pacing and all of that. And it just kind of, I don't know, I like where they're going here with the spinoff. So yeah, but I'm really excited for Comic-Con. I really cannot wait. 3 more days away still. Like, oh, it was flying by before. It was just like, okay, another week went by, another week went by. Like, it just kept kind of flying by. But as soon as we were like 4 or 5, maybe 6 days away, like every day is just taking so long now. So yeah, but only 3 days from now and we'll have the official trailer. We'll learn so much more about the story. Like, what we know now will be nothing compared to what we're going to know then, because we don't even really know a lot right now. So imagine once we actually watch the trailer, we're going to know so much then. So yeah, post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.